Hello and welcome to the Spinnaker Industries training program on hearing protection, care, use, and type. Version 1.0. At Spinnaker, your safety is our top priority. This is our agenda for today. 1. Legislative requirements surrounding hearing protection. 2. Activities requiring hearing protection. 3. Injury and hazards. 4. Prevention, the types of hearing protection available at Spinnaker. 5. Spinnaker noise assessment and 6. Summary. Legislative requirements. Regulations 381/15 Section 2, 1 states, every employer shall take all measures reasonable necessary in the circumstance to protect workers from exposure to hazardous sound levels. Section 2, 2. Every employee shall ensure that no worker is exposed to sound levels greater than 85 dBA over an 8-hour period. Industrial Regulations 851, Section 139, 3. Every employer shall take all measures reasonably necessary in the circumstances to protect workers from exposure to hazardous sound levels. When it comes to hearing protection, all equipment must conform to CSAZ 94.2 standard. As a rule of thumb, hearing protection required when exposed to noise level is above 85 dBA over an 8-hour period. Activities requiring hearing protection. In your work environment, exposed ears are susceptible to many physical hazards. Hearing protection is often the only practical means of preventing injury from physical hazards such as using power tools, working near heavy equipment or acoustic environment. Some factors that can affect your hearing include the following. Types of noise such as continuous, intermittent, impact or the high and low frequency. Intensity of the noise, which refers to the level of loudness, and duration of exposure. The length of time a worker is subjected to noise hazards such as the hours, day, or years. Injury and hazards. In your work environment, injuries from lack of hearing protection may result in a broad array of injuries including hearing loss, which can be both temporary or permanent. Physical hazards include loud sounds from power tools, heavy equipment, or acoustic environment. Noise hazards is a function of sound level and duration. How loud is too loud? Take a look at this graph and you will see a raindrop is 40 dBA compared to a hairdryer at 90 dBA or a chainsaw at 100 dBA. When sound waves enter the outer ear, it travels through a narrow passage called the ear canal, which leads to the eardrum. The eardrum vibrates from the incoming sound waves and sends these vibrations to tiny bones in the middle ear and make contact with sensory cells, hair cells, which allow us to hear. The summary chart below identifies hearing exposure limits. OHSA regulations require us to use hearing protection when we are exposed to sound levels about 85 dBA for over an 8-hour period. This is because, at this point, sound begins to be hazardous to our health. You will notice that as the sound levels increase to 88 dBA, the safety duration significantly decreases to a 4-hour exposure level, after which point hearing protection is required to protect your health. When sound gets to 100 dBA, hearing protection is required after a 15-minute duration exposure, otherwise the sound may impact your health. Prevention, type of hearing protection. At Spinnaker Industries we offer disposable foam earplugs. The elasticity in them allow the earplug to adapt easily to the changes in your ear canal. Most brands can be reused a few times during the day. It is important to clean your hands before inserting the earplugs into your ear. The advantage of using foam earplugs is low risk of irritation and one size fits most workers. The disadvantage is that a large supply may be needed. Let's review this short video on foam earplugs, including how to insert them correctly into our ears.
Hello, I'm Elliot Berger, Senior Scientist, Auditory Research for Aero Technologies, and I have been working with foam earplugs since they were invented in the 1970s. We have learned much since then about how to use them well and how effective they can be. This brief 5-minute video was created to share that information in order to optimize your wearing experience. In the next few minutes, I'd like to explain to you some of the features of using a foam earplug to get the best comfort and the best protection. Although foam earplugs are relatively easy to use for fine performance, if you pay attention to these details, they'll work a lot better for you. With a foam plug, unlike another piece of foam, for example a bathroom sponge, which you squash and knead and squeeze, with a foam plug there's a particular way that you want to prepare it for insertion. You want to roll it into a very tiny, tightly compressed cylinder. Now some people like to roll it along their fingers like this. Other people like to roll it around their fingers. Some people, because they need some extra finger strength, will use both hands. The only thing that doesn't work, because it causes a distorted and creased plug, is to roll it between the palms of your hands. So I prefer rolling it like this, and this is how I will demonstrate it for you. I'm going to roll it slowly without squeezing it too hard at first. As the plug gets smaller and smaller, I'm going to squeeze it harder and harder. The reason I don't squeeze too hard at first is because I don't want to squash it into a shape that will have creases or wrinkles. I'd like it to be very round and smooth so it's rolling up and down my fingers in a very smooth manner. As I get it small, I want to squeeze it as hard as I possibly can, and I'm not exaggerating. I seriously mean that this is your morning finger exercises. You want to squeeze this plug as hard as you possibly can so that you have a tiny crease-free cylinder that you can then put into your ear. The other part of inserting this plug or any other ear plug is that you're going to want to reach over your head with the hand opposite the ear that's being fitted and grasp your ear firmly and pull it outwards and upwards. The reason that we do that, as you see here, is that as we pull on the ear, it changes the opening of the ear canal. You can see how now I have my ear opened rather widely, and it will be easier for me to get a plug in. For different people, the direction may vary somewhat, but in all cases you will be grabbing the ear between the thumb and forefingers and pulling it away from the side of your head. So you roll the plug down while you have the plug well compressed, you keep rolling it, you bring it up to your ear, and now while you're holding the pinna, you insert the plug in the ear canal. There's no reason to hold the plug because once you've put it in your ear properly, it will expand in place to give you a custom, comfortable fit. One of the likeliest causes of a bad insertion of a foam ear plug is that it has been inadequately rolled down or it has been allowed to expand too much before it was brought up for insertion to the ear. What this looks like is that someone will come up to the ear with a plug inadequately compressed and then try and force it into the ear canal. It won't slide into the canal any more than it will slide out of the canal. And you can see how it looks like it's expanding out of my ear. Actually, it's simply regaining its original uncompressed shape. One gauge that's helpful to judge the fit of a foam ear plug is where the back of the plug sits relative to this little bump in front of the ear, which is called the tragus. You can see that in this case, where the plug has been poorly fitted, that much of it is outside the tragus and filling this part of the ear, which is called the concha. When a plug has been properly inserted, you can see that from this angle you can barely see that there's any foam in my ear. I'm going to turn my head for you now slowly, and you can see how the plug has been well fitted into the ear canal. It's lost well behind the tragus. This part of the ear called the concha has no foam in it. The foam is in the ear canal itself. You can also use your finger for this test by feeling the back of the plug relative to the tragus. Another way to assess the fit of foam ear plugs is to allow them to expand in your ear for about a minute or so, and then to remove them and examine the plug, or read the plug if you will, because at this point the plug will be providing a custom impression of your ear. On this plug, what you can see is that there's a wrinkle, and that wrinkle is actually a sound channel which could let sound in along the side of the plug. So that's not been a well-fitted earplug. Now on this earplug, the tip of it has been mashed back a little bit. I would like to see the end of the plug blunt and square, indicating that it had been allowed to be inserted fully and to expand to fill the canal. This one had been pushed in a little bit at the end and was running into the canal wall. On this one, you can see that about one half of it has been inserted into the ear canal. You can see by the bend here, there's no creases or wrinkles, so that is a well-fitted foam earplug. Thank you for your time, and now it's up to you. Try my suggestions. Be willing to practice and pay attention to your ears. You will be rewarded with a lifetime of good listening.
Spinnaker Noise Assessment. The Spinnaker Noise Assessment, based on the company's latest noise assessment and evaluation, was performed on 8 key job descriptions. 5 of those jobs were identified as areas where workers could be exposed to sound levels at or above 85 dBA, and where hearing protection is required. This includes the packager, where sounds were recorded at 93.5 dBA, 2 MIG welder at 89.2 dBA, 3 assembler at 85.6 dBA, and 4 shear operator at 85 dBA. Next, Spinnaker evaluated common tasks performed at its facility. The following activities were identified as areas where workers may be exposed to sound hazards at or above 85 dBA, including T-nail gun, miter saw, bandsaw, electric grinder, MIG welding, and 230-ton all-steel brake press and paint booth. Recommendations and control. During the assessment, most workers were observed wearing proper hearing protection. Hearing protection is required when performing the following jobs: 1 packager, 2 MIG welder, 3 assembler, 4 shear operator, 5 paint booth and 6 230-ton brake press. Additionally, Spinnaker must continue to train workers on hearing protection, including the proper selection, use, care, and fit. Provide hearing protection to workers including foam earplugs. Post signage in areas where noise exceeds 85 dBA. Mandate that hearing protection is required on the shop floor at all times and provide hearing protection with an NRR value of 23. Summary. Whenever we are working in noisy work environment, including areas where sound is above 85 dBA over an 8-hour period, hearing protection is required. As sound levels increase up to 100 dBA, your level of duration will decrease to 15 minutes. At which point ear protection is required. Your ears are sensitive and special and must be protected. Spinnaker will supply any worker engaged in noisy work with foam earplugs to protect your hearing. All workers must do their part and properly use the equipment to protect your health and safety. Thank you for your participation. If you have any questions about this or any other training program, please contact a member of the Bell Latour Group or your health and safety representative.